My ex-wife getting me fired was the best career move I ever made. The email hit my inbox at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and I knew my life was about to implode before I even opened it. Jake, please report to HR immediately. Linda Morrison, Human Resources Director. I'd been expecting this for weeks, ever since Sarah started her scorched earth campaign during our divorce proceedings. My ex-wife had always been ruthlessly efficient when she wanted something, and apparently, destroying my career was just another item on her vindictive checklist. The walk to HR felt like a death march. 6 years at Meridian Technologies, 6 years of 60-hour weeks and missed dinners and slowly watching my soul get crushed under the weight of corporate mediocrity, and it was all about to end because my ex-wife couldn't handle the fact that I'd finally grown a backbone. Linda Morrison looked like she'd rather be anywhere else when I knocked on her door. She was 40-something, kind enough, and had always seemed to like me during our brief interactions at company events. Jake, please sit down. Her voice was carefully neutral, the tone every HR director perfects when they're about to ruin someone's day. Let me guess, I said, settling into the uncomfortable chair across from her desk. This is about Sarah. Linda's face confirmed everything. She pulled out a manila folder thick enough to choke a horse. We've received some concerning information about your recent performance and conduct. Concerning information. I almost laughed. You mean lies? Jake, I have to take all reports seriously, especially when they come from credible sources who know you personally. Linda opened the folder, and I caught a glimpse of printed emails, what looked like phone transcripts, maybe even screenshots. Sarah had been busy. What exactly am I being accused of? Linda cleared her throat. Missing critical deadlines, showing up to work intoxicated, making inappropriate comments to female colleagues, and... She paused, clearly uncomfortable. Discussing confidential company information with outside parties during what the source described as drunken rants about your workplace. Every word hit like a physical blow. Not because any of it was true, it was all complete fabrication, but because I could see Sarah's fingerprints all over each accusation. She'd taken every private conversation we'd ever had about my job, every moment of vulnerability I'd shared during our marriage, and weaponized it all. Linda, you know me. 6 years, never a single complaint about my work. My performance reviews have been consistently above average. I've never even called in sick drunk, let alone shown up that way. I know, Jake. That's what makes this so difficult. She genuinely looked pained. But we have multiple corroborating reports, and given the personal nature of your current situation, the company feels it's best to part ways before this becomes a bigger issue. Multiple reports. Of course. Sarah had probably called in favors, maybe even convinced some of our mutual friends to back up her story. She'd always been better at managing people than I was, it's what made her such a successful marketing director at her own company. This is effective immediately. We'll provide 2 weeks severance and a neutral reference for future employers. I'm sorry, Jake. I really am. The security guard who escorted me out was actually apologetic too. Tom had been working the front desk since before I started, and we'd exchanged pleasantries about basketball and his grandson's Little League games hundreds of times over the years. This is messed up, man, he said quietly as we waited for the elevator with my hastily packed box of personal items. Everyone knows you're one of the good ones. By 4:15 p.m., I was sitting in my Honda Civic in the parking lot of my former workplace, unemployed for the first time since college, and absolutely furious. The apartment felt like a tomb when I finally made it home. I dropped the box of my desk belongings next to the door and stared at the stack of bills waiting on my kitchen counter. Rent, car payment, credit cards, and the legal fees that were bleeding me dry, $2,847 due in the next 2 weeks alone, not counting the groceries I couldn't afford and the utilities that were already overdue. My phone had been buzzing nonstop since I left Meridian. Word travels fast in our industry, especially when someone gets walked out by security. Most of the messages were from coworkers expressing shock and offering support, but a few were from friends who seemed to be fishing for details about what really happened. I wondered how many of those were reporting back to Sarah. The worst message was from my brother Mike. Dude, heard about the job. Sarah called mom earlier today, said she was worried about your drinking and mental state. What the hell is going on? My own mother. Sarah had called my own mother to plant seeds of doubt about my stability. The woman I'd shared a bed with for 8 years, who knew exactly how rarely I drank and how carefully I'd always managed my responsibilities, was systematically destroying every relationship I had. I opened my laptop and started scrolling through job boards, but my heart wasn't in it. The tech market was brutal right now, and with Sarah's poison spreading through our professional network, finding something comparable to my $89,000 salary at Meridian was going to be nearly impossible. Especially if she convinced other industry contacts that I was unreliable. That's when I remembered the folder. I'd shoved it under a stack of old magazines months ago, back when things with Sarah were just starting to get ugly, but I still had hope we could handle the divorce like adults. It was filled with sketches, flowcharts, and pages of code snippets for an app idea that had been haunting me since college. TaskFlow. A project management system that would actually understand how creative people work instead of forcing them into rigid corporate structures. I'd outlined the entire concept during late-night sessions when I couldn't sleep, frustrated by the clunky, soul-crushing software we used at Meridian and every other company I'd ever worked for. The folder was thick with notes I'd forgotten about. Market research showing that 73% of freelancers and small creative teams were unsatisfied with existing project management tools. Wireframes for an interface that would adapt to different working styles instead of demanding compliance. Back-end architecture that could scale efficiently without the bloated overhead that made most enterprise software feel like torture. I'd never pursued it because it seemed too risky, too uncertain. Sarah had always rolled her eyes when I talked about entrepreneurial dreams, reminding me that we had a mortgage in her timeline for starting a family required financial stability, not pipe dreams. But sitting there in my rapidly emptying apartment, unemployed and unemployable thanks to her sabotage, the risk calculation suddenly looked very different. My savings account had exactly $3,247.83. Enough for maybe 2 months of bare-bones survival if I was careful. Unemployment benefits might kick in eventually, assuming Sarah's accusations didn't disqualify me somehow. I could spend the next 6 months desperately applying for jobs while she continued poisoning wells behind the scenes, slowly draining what little money I had left. Or I could bet everything on myself. I opened a new document and started typing, Task Flow Development Timeline, Phase 1. For the first time in months, I felt something other than anger or despair. I felt possibility. The next morning, I woke up at 5:43 a.m. with the kind of clarity that only comes from having absolutely nothing left to lose. I'd stayed up until 3 a.m. mapping out Task Flow's core features, and my dining room table looked like a conspiracy theorist's dream: sticky notes, printed articles about the project management software market, and 3 notebooks filled with increasingly illegible handwriting as the caffeine wore off. But I had a plan. More importantly, I had something Sarah couldn't touch, the skills I'd spent 15 years building, and an idea she didn't even know existed. My phone rang while I was making coffee. David Chen, my former teammate at Meridian. Jake, man, what the actual hell happened yesterday? Linda won't say anything except personnel matter, but the whole dev team is freaking out. I hesitated. David was a good guy, but in a company of 200 people, secrets had a half-life of about 6 hours. It's complicated. Sarah's been spreading some creative stories about my work performance. That's insane. You literally fixed the Morrison client database single-handedly last month. Peterson was calling you a hero. David paused. Wait, is this about the divorce? She's trying to get you fired. Mission accomplished. I stirred sugar into my coffee and watched the steam rise. Look, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Has anyone else been asking about me? My reliability, my work habits, anything like that? Actually, yeah. Rachel from marketing mentioned someone called her asking about your, what did she say? Professional demeanor or something. She told them to pound sand, but she thought it was weird enough to mention. Rachel Kumar. I'd worked with her on the client presentation software integration 2 years ago. We'd barely interacted since then, which meant Sarah was casting a wide net, reaching out to anyone who'd ever worked with me. David, I need another favor. Can you send me the contact info for anyone from the Morrison client project? Off the books. Why? Because if I'm going to freelance, I need clients who actually know my work quality, not the fairy tale version Sarah's been shopping around. It wasn't entirely a lie. TaskFlow was going to need beta testers, and Morrison Industries had been vocal about hating their current project management system. After David promised to send me the contacts, I spent the morning doing something I should have done months ago. I googled my own name. The results made my blood run cold. Page 1 looked normal, my LinkedIn profile, a few old college newspaper articles from when I'd won a programming competition, some open source contributions I'd forgotten about. But page 2 had something new, a post on a professional networking forum from 3 weeks ago. Does anyone have experience working with Jake Morrison in a professional capacity? Considering him for a consulting role, but I've heard mixed reviews about reliability and communication. Please PM if you have insights. Anonymous. The thread had 17 replies, most of them people saying they'd never heard of me. But 3 responses made my stomach drop. Worked with him briefly, seemed competent but heard he's been having personal issues lately. Might want to proceed with caution. Friend of mine at Meridian mentioned some concerns about his recent performance. Nothing specific but enough to give me pause. Can't speak to his technical skills, but I'd be careful about client-facing work. Word is he's been unprofessional in some recent interactions. Sarah hadn't just gotten me fired. She'd been methodically building a paper trail of doubt about my professional reputation for weeks, maybe months. Anyone who Googled my name, every potential employer, every possible client, would see this thread. I screenshotted everything and saved it to a folder labeled Legal Evidence, though I had no idea if I could afford a lawyer to do anything about it. The rage that hit me was different from yesterday's shock and despair. This was cold, calculating fury. Sarah hadn't just destroyed my current job, she tried to destroy my entire future in the industry. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd left me with nothing to lose, and she had no idea what I was capable of when I had nothing to lose. I opened my laptop and started coding TaskFlow's authentication system. If Sarah wanted war, she was about to learn what I'd been building while she thought I was just another corporate drone. The first week of coding was like falling into a trance. I'd wake up at dawn, make coffee, and disappear into TaskFlow's architecture until my eyes burned and my back screamed from hunching over my laptop. By Friday, I had a working prototype of the core scheduling engine, basic, ugly, but functional. That's when Marcus called. Marcus Webb had been my roommate senior year at Georgia Tech, and now he was a principal engineer at Innovate Solutions, one of Atlanta's fastest-growing startups. We'd kept in loose touch over the years, the kind of friendship that consisted mostly of liking each other's LinkedIn posts and grabbing beers twice a year. Jake, buddy, heard you left Meridian. Looking for something new? I almost laughed. News of my firing had apparently morphed into a voluntary departure somewhere along the networking grapevine. Something like that. Actually working on my own project right now. Yeah. What kind of project? I found myself describing TaskFlow with more passion than I'd felt about anything work-related in years. Marcus listened without interrupting, occasionally making interested noises. Send me what you've got, he said when I finished. We're actually in the market for better project management tools. Our current system is hot garbage, and if what you're describing works the way you say it does. It's pretty rough right now. Maybe give me another week to clean it up. Jake, I've seen your code. Send me the rough version. After we hung up, I stared at my laptop screen for 10 minutes before finally packaging up TaskFlow's current build. It felt like sending your kid to their first day of kindergarten, proud and terrified in equal measure. Marcus's response came back in 4 hours. Holy shit, Jake. Can we talk Monday? The weekend crawled by. I tried to keep coding, but my concentration was shot. Instead, I found myself obsessively checking my bank balance, $2,891.34, my email, and that goddamn forum thread Sarah had started. 2 more anonymous replies had appeared, both vague enough to sound credible while being impossible to refute. Sunday evening, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Jake Morrison. This is Jennifer Walsh from Walsh & Associates Legal. I represent your ex-wife in your divorce proceedings. My blood pressure spiked instantly. What do you want? Mrs. Morrison has asked me to reach out regarding some concerning behavior she's observed since your recent job termination. She's worried about your stability and thinks it might be beneficial for everyone if we could expedite the final settlement. My stability? I kept my voice level, but my hand was gripping the phone hard enough to crack the case. I'm perfectly stable, thanks. Of course. However, given your current employment situation, Mrs. Morrison is willing to reduce her alimony request from $2,400 monthly to $1,800 if we can finalize everything by the end of next week. It would provide closure for both parties and reduce your ongoing legal expenses. The calculation was crystal clear. Sarah thought she'd broken me. Unemployed, potentially unemployable, facing mounting bills, of course I'd jump at the chance to save $600 a month and end the legal bleeding. I need to think about it, I said. Certainly. But this offer expires Friday. After that, we proceed with the original terms. She hung up before I could respond. I sat there holding my dead phone, Sarah's strategy suddenly visible in perfect clarity. The forum posts, the phone calls to my professional contacts, getting me fired, it wasn't just about revenge. It was about leverage. She wanted to grind me down financially and professionally until I'd accept whatever settlement she offered just to make it stop. The brilliant part was how reasonable it sounded. $1,800 instead of $2,400, legal fees capped, everything finished quickly. 6 months ago, I probably would have taken it. But 6 months ago, I didn't have task flow. Marcus was calling at 8 a.m. Monday morning. I answered before the second ring. Jake, I showed task flow to my team lead and our CTO. We want to bring you in as a consultant. 50 hours at $120 an hour to customize it for our workflow. $6,000. Enough to buy me 2 more months and tell Sarah's lawyer exactly where she could stick her generous settlement offer. When do we start? The contract with Marcus's company felt like a lifeline, but it came with complications I hadn't anticipated. Their customization requirements were extensive. They wanted TaskFlow to integrate with their existing client billing system, handle multi-time zone scheduling for their remote teams, and include detailed analytics that would track productivity metrics without feeling invasive to employees. Think of it as TaskFlow 2.0, Marcus explained during our kickoff meeting in their downtown Atlanta offices. What you built is brilliant for basic project management, but we need enterprise-level functionality. The scope was easily 3 months of full-time work, but Marcus needed a working version in 6 weeks. We're pitching a major client in December, and having a project management system that doesn't make everyone want to quit would be a huge selling point. I signed the contract that afternoon, but walking out of their offices, the weight of what I committed to hit me. 50 hours of consulting work while simultaneously building TaskFlow into something market-ready, all while operating on a shoestring budget and dealing with Sarah's ongoing sabotage campaign. The next morning brought another complication, an email from my landlord. Jake, hope you're well. Wanted to give you a heads up that someone called yesterday asking about your lease terms and payment history. Said they were doing a background check for a potential employer. Didn't give them any specifics, but thought you should know. Rick. A background check. Sarah was escalating. I called Rick immediately. What exactly did they ask? Pretty standard stuff. How long you been here, whether you paid rent on time, any noise complaints or property damage. I told them you were a model tenant and that was it. Rick paused. Jake, is everything okay? This felt weird, especially since they knew I was your landlord but didn't know basic stuff about your lease. It's complicated. If anyone else calls, can you let me know before you say anything? Sure thing, buddy. You in some kind of trouble? The answer to that was getting more complicated by the day. That evening, I was deep in TaskFlow's integration code when my phone rang. My brother Mike. Jake, we need to talk. Sarah called Mom again today. My stomach clenched. What did she say this time? She's worried you're having some kind of breakdown. Said you've been making wild claims about starting your own company, talking about making millions of dollars, completely disconnected from reality. Mike's voice was careful, the tone you use when you're not sure if someone is lying or delusional. She thinks you might be manic or something. Mike, I am starting a company. I have a contract with Innovate Solutions. I can send you the paperwork. Okay, but... Jake, she also said you've been calling her at work, leaving rambling voicemails about getting revenge, making her pay for what she did. She's considering getting a restraining order. The blood drained from my face. Mike, I haven't called Sarah once since she moved out. Not once. Check my phone records. I believe you, but Mom's freaking out. Sarah sounded genuinely scared, said you knew details about her daily routine that made her think you'd been following her or something. This was next-level psychological warfare. Sarah was building a narrative where I was the unstable ex-husband spiraling into obsession and potential violence. If she got a restraining order, it would poison any future custody discussions and make me look like exactly the kind of person who deserved to be fired for erratic behavior. Mike, I need you to do something for me. Next time Sarah calls Mom, ask for specifics. Times, dates, what exactly I supposedly said. Make her be precise. Why? Because I've been coding 18 hours a day for 2 weeks. I have timestamps on every git commit, every file save, every email I've sent. If she claims I called her Tuesday at 3 p.m., I can prove I was in a client meeting. After Mike hung up, I sat staring at my laptop screen, TaskFlow's code blurring as the implications sank in. Sarah wasn't just trying to destroy my career anymore. She was trying to destroy my entire life, systematically dismantling my relationships with family, colleagues, and potentially the legal system itself. But she'd made the same mistake twice now. She was underestimating what I was building while she was focused on tearing me down. I opened a new document and started logging everything. Every call, every email, every hour I spent working on TaskFlow. If Sarah wanted to play the documentation game, I was about to become the most documented man in Atlanta. TaskFlow was going to save me in more ways than one. The breakthrough came at 2:17 a.m. on a Thursday, 3 weeks into the Innovate Solutions contract. I'd been wrestling with TaskFlow's notification system for hours when something Marcus mentioned during our last meeting suddenly clicked into place. Our biggest problem isn't managing tasks, he'd said. It's managing the chaos that happens when priorities shift mid-project and nobody knows what they're supposed to be working on anymore. That's when I realized TaskFlow wasn't just a project management app, it was a communication revolution. Instead of bombarding teams with endless email chains and Slack notifications, it could intelligently route information based on actual relevance and urgency. The system would learn individual work patterns and deliver updates at optimal times, in formats that matched how different people processed information. I coded for 6 straight hours, fueled by the kind of manic energy that only comes when you know you're building something genuinely innovative. By sunrise, I had a working prototype of what I was calling Adaptive Flow, a notification engine that would revolutionize how distributed teams stayed synchronized. My phone rang at 8:30 a.m. Unknown number again. Jake Morrison. This is Detective Patricia Williams with Atlanta Police Department. I need to speak with you about a complaint we received. My coffee mug stopped halfway to my mouth. What kind of complaint? Regarding alleged harassment and stalking behavior toward your ex-wife, Sarah Morrison. Can you come in today for a conversation? The room started spinning. Sarah had actually done it. She convinced the police I was dangerous. Detective, I haven't contacted my ex-wife in any way since she moved out 6 weeks ago. Not once. That's something we can discuss in person. Are you available this afternoon? 3 hours later, I was sitting in a sterile interview room at the Zone 1 precinct, my phone recording everything with Detective Williams' permission. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 30s, with the kind of direct eye contact that made it clear she'd heard every excuse in the book. Mr. Morrison, your ex-wife filed a complaint alleging you've been calling her workplace repeatedly, driving by her apartment, and sending threatening messages through intermediaries. She consulted her notes. She provided phone records showing 17 calls from numbers she believes belong to you, and witness statements from neighbors who've seen someone matching your description in her parking lot. Detective, I can prove exactly where I've been every day for the past month. I pulled out my laptop. I'm a software developer. Everything I do gets automatically logged with timestamps. Git commits, email metadata, video calls with clients, even my grocery store receipts. Detective Williams looked intrigued despite herself. Show me Tuesday, October 15th, between 2 and 4 p.m. I pulled up my development environment. Tuesday the 15th, I was in a video conference with Innovate Solutions from 1:30 to 3:45 p.m. Here's the meeting recording, here's my screen share activity, and here are the code commits I made during the call. I clicked through the evidence. Sarah claims I called her office at 2:20 p.m. that day. According to her statement, yes. I was literally presenting TaskFlow's user interface to a room full of witnesses at that exact moment. You can see the timestamp on the screen recording. For the next 40 minutes, I walked Detective Williams through my digital paper trail. Every supposed harassment incident Sarah had reported corresponded to times when I could prove I was working, usually with witnesses or digital evidence that would be impossible to fake. Mr. Morrison, this is unusually thorough documentation. My ex-wife got me fired by making false accusations about my work performance. I started logging everything to protect myself. I hesitated, then decided to be completely honest. Detective, Sarah is trying to destroy my life systematically. My job, my professional reputation, my family relationships, and now this. But she's underestimating how much evidence I generate just by doing my work. Detective Williams closed her notebook. I'm going to need copies of everything you just showed me. And Mr. Morrison, if someone is filing false police reports, that's a felony. Are you interested in pursuing charges? Walking out of the police station, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months, hope. Not just hope that I could defend myself against Sarah's accusations, but hope that her pattern of lies was finally going to catch up with her. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Jake, TaskFlow demo was incredible. CTO wants to discuss licensing the full platform. Can you be here tomorrow at 10 a.m.? I looked at the message, then at the police station behind me, then at my laptop bag containing 3 weeks of code that could change everything. Sarah thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. She was about to learn she'd been wrong about that too. The meeting with Innovate Solutions CTO changed everything. Rebecca Martinez had that sharp-eyed intensity that told me she built her career making million-dollar decisions quickly and accurately. She listened to my TaskFlow presentation without interruption, occasionally making notes on her tablet, while Marcus and 2 other engineers I didn't recognize sat around the conference table. Jake, what you've built is impressive, she said when I finished the demo. But I need to understand the business model. Are you looking for a work-for-hire contract, or do you want to license this as a product? The question I've been dreading. Honestly, Rebecca, I haven't fully decided. TaskFlow started as a consulting project, but the more I develop it, the more I think it could be something much bigger. How much bigger? I took a breath. I think TaskFlow could replace every major project management platform in the small to medium business space within 5 years. The adaptive notification system alone is worth millions in productivity gains. Rebecca exchanged glances with Marcus. That's a bold claim. What kind of market research are you basing that on? For the next hour, I walked them through everything I'd compiled during those late-night coding sessions. Market size data, competitor analysis, user experience surveys showing massive dissatisfaction with existing tools, and most importantly, the technical architecture that would let TaskFlow scale efficiently where other platforms crashed and burned. Jake, I'm going to be direct with you, Rebecca said finally. What you've shown me today is easily worth a 7-figure acquisition if you can prove market fit. But I need to know you're stable enough to execute on this vision. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? I mean I did my due diligence after Marcus brought you in. There are some concerning discussions about you on professional forums. Questions about reliability, personal issues affecting your work performance. She leaned forward. I need to know if there's something I should be worried about. The room went silent. 3 weeks of progress, the best opportunity of my career, and Sarah's poison was still seeping into everything. Rebecca, my ex-wife has been systematically spreading false information about my professional reputation as part of our divorce proceedings. Everything you found online is fabricated. I pulled out my phone. Yesterday I spent 3 hours with Atlanta police proving she's been filing false harassment reports against me. The detective is now investigating her for filing fraudulent complaints. I showed them Detective Williams' business card and the case number she'd given me. I can provide documentation for every accusation she's made. Time-stamped code commits, meeting recordings, witness statements. She got me fired from Meridian Technologies using the same tactics. Marcus spoke up. Rebecca, I've worked with Jake for 3 weeks now. 18-hour days, never missed a deadline, code quality is exceptional. Whatever's happening in his personal life, his work is flawless. Rebecca studied her tablet for a long moment. Jake, I'm going to make you an offer, but it comes with conditions. Innovate Solutions will license TaskFlow for $50,000 upfront plus 15% of revenue from any projects where we implement it. That gives you capital to develop the full platform while we provide real-world testing and case studies. $50,000. Enough to tell Sarah's lawyer to shove her settlement offer somewhere anatomically impossible. What are the conditions? First, you sign a non-compete clause. If we're investing in TaskFlow, I don't want you shopping it to our competitors. Second, we get first option to acquire the full platform if you decide to sell. And third. She paused. I want monthly progress reports that include documentation of your development process. If your ex-wife is really trying to sabotage your reputation, the best defense is proving how productive and professional you actually are. I stared at the contract Rebecca slid across the table. 3 months ago, I was making $89,000 a year in a job I hated, married to a woman who was systematically destroying my life behind my back. Now I was looking at a licensing deal that would pay for a year of independent development while building the foundation for something that could be worth millions. Where do I sign? That evening, I called my brother Mike with news that felt surreal to say out loud. $50,000. Mike's voice cracked with disbelief. Jake, that's incredible. I mean, I believed you about the startup thing, but you thought Sarah might be right about me being delusional? Maybe a little, he admitted. She was really convincing about the manic behavior thing. Said you were making grandiose claims about becoming a millionaire, completely unrealistic timeline expectations. I laughed, actually laughed, for the first time in months. Mike, I just signed a contract that pays me more than I made in 8 months at my last job. For something I built in my dining room while she was trying to convince everyone I was having a breakdown. So what happens now? I looked at my laptop, TaskFlow's code glowing on the screen, then at the stack of bills I could finally pay, then at Detective Williams' business card sitting next to my coffee mug. Now I build something she can't touch, can't sabotage, and can't take away from me. I paused. And if she keeps pushing with the false accusations, she's going to discover that documentation works both ways. The best part was knowing that Sarah had no idea what I was building while she'd been focused on tearing me down. She was about to get a very expensive education about underestimating people. The call from Detective Williams came at 7:23 a.m. on a Wednesday, 2 weeks after signing the Innovate Solutions contract. Mr. Morrison, I have some updates on your case. Can you come in this morning? I'd been up since 5 a.m. working on TaskFlow's analytics dashboard, riding the momentum of having actual money in my bank account for the first time in months. The $50,000 licensing fee had cleared 3 days ago, and I'd immediately paid off every overdue bill, bought groceries without checking my balance, and even splurged on a decent office chair that didn't make my back scream after 12-hour coding sessions. Is this about Sarah's complaint? Among other things. How's 10 a.m.? Detective Williams looked grimmer than I remembered when I walked into the precinct. She had a thick folder on her desk and the expression of someone who discovered something unpleasant. Jake, we've been investigating the harassment allegations against you, and the evidence you provided was extremely helpful. Your digital documentation is the most thorough I've ever seen in a case like this. Thank you. I assume that means. It means we've determined that every single incident your ex-wife reported was fabricated. The phone calls, the stalking, the threatening messages, none of it happened. She opened the folder. But that's not why I called you in. My stomach tightened. What did you find? We started looking deeper into Mrs. Morrison's activities, and we discovered she's been running this same pattern against other people. Professional sabotage, false accusations, systematic reputation destruction. Detective Williams pulled out a stack of papers. 3 other individuals in the past 2 years. 2 ex-boyfriends and a former business partner. The room felt like it was tilting. Other people. Marcus Chin, different Marcus than your friend, dated your ex-wife for 6 months in 2022. After they broke up, he was mysteriously fired from his marketing job at Turner Broadcasting. Started getting calls from potential employers asking about his reliability issues and drinking problems. Sound familiar? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Jennifer Walsh, her former business partner at Morrison Walsh Creative. They dissolved their partnership in early 2023 after what Jennifer thought was a mutual disagreement about company direction. 6 months later, Jennifer discovered that Sarah had been spreading rumors about financial impropriety and stealing client contacts. Jennifer lost 3 major accounts and had to close her independent consultancy. Jesus Christ. The third victim is Dr. Michael Torres, a therapist Sarah dated briefly last year. After he ended the relationship, she filed a complaint with the Georgia Board of Professional Counselors alleging inappropriate conduct during their personal relationship. The investigation cleared him completely, but not before it cost him $15,000 in legal fees and damaged his practice reputation. Detective Williams leaned back in her chair. Jake, your ex-wife isn't just vindictive. She's methodical. She has a playbook for destroying people who cross her, and she's been refining it for years. I stared at the folder, thinking about every conversation Sarah and I had ever had about her previous relationships. The marketing guy who was unreliable and had substance abuse issues. The business partner who couldn't be trusted with client relationships. The therapist who had serious professional boundary problems. She told me their sides of the story to make herself look sympathetic, while she was actually describing her own handiwork. What happens now? Now we build a case for criminal harassment, filing false police reports, and possibly conspiracy to commit fraud. But Jake, I need you to understand something. Detective Williams fixed me with that direct stare. Sarah Morrison is going to figure out we're investigating her soon. People like this don't go quietly. What does that mean? It means whatever she's been doing to sabotage you so far. She's probably just getting started. I drove home from the police station with my hands shaking, not from fear but from rage so pure it felt like electricity in my veins. 3 other victims. Years of systematic destruction. Sarah hadn't just targeted me, I was the latest iteration of a pattern she'd been perfecting since before we even met. My phone was buzzing with a text from Marcus at Innovate Solutions. Jake, need to talk ASAP. Something weird happened with our client presentation. I called him before I even got out of my car. Jake, thank God. Listen, we presented task flow to the Morrison Industries people yesterday. Yeah, I know, weird coincidence with the name, and everything went perfectly. They loved it, ready to sign a 6-figure implementation contract. That's incredible news. It was. Until this morning, when they called saying they'd heard concerning information about TaskFlow's developer and needed to reassess the relationship. They wouldn't give specifics, but Jake. Marcus paused. Someone got to them between yesterday afternoon and this morning. The electricity feeling turned into ice water. Sarah had found out about TaskFlow. Marcus, I need to tell you something about my ex-wife. The conversation with Marcus lasted 47 minutes and left me staring at my phone in disbelief. After I explained Detective Williams' findings about Sarah's pattern of victims, Marcus went silent for so long I thought the call had dropped. Jake, this is insane. She's been doing this to multiple people. For years, apparently. And now she knows about TaskFlow. I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache building. Marcus, I need you to document everything about the Morrison Industries situation. Exact times, who you talked to, what they said. If Sarah's escalating her tactics, we need evidence. Already on it. But Jake, there's something else. Marcus's voice got quieter. Rebecca wants to see you tomorrow morning. The Morrison Industries thing spooked her pretty badly, and she's asking questions about whether TaskFlow is worth the potential drama. After hanging up, I sat in my driveway for 20 minutes, trying to process the implications. Sarah discovering TaskFlow meant she now understood what I'd been building while she thought she was destroying me. The $50,000 licensing deal, the potential for millions in revenue, the fact that I wasn't just surviving her sabotage but thriving despite it, all of it threatened the narrative she'd been constructing about my inevitable failure. My phone rang again. This time it was Jennifer Walsh, the attorney representing Sarah in our divorce. Mr. Morrison, I'm calling because we need to discuss some concerning developments. Mrs. Morrison has informed me that you've been making threats about destroying her career and making her pay for the divorce proceedings. I actually laughed out loud. Ms. Walsh, I spoke with Atlanta police this morning about your client's pattern of filing false accusations against me and apparently several other people over the past few years. The silence stretched for 15 seconds. I'm not sure what you're referring to. I'm referring to Detective Patricia Williams' investigation into criminal harassment charges against Sarah. Case number 2024 to 15847. Your client has been systematically fabricating evidence and filing false police reports. I kept my voice level and professional. I suggest you verify Sarah's claims before repeating them to avoid potential liability issues. Mr. Morrison, that's a very serious accusation. It's also a very well-documented one. Detective Williams has statements from 3 other victims and evidence that every harassment claim Sarah made against me was fabricated. I paused, letting that sink in. Ms. Walsh, you might want to reconsider what kind of client you're representing. After ending the call, I realized Sarah's lawyer genuinely hadn't known about the police investigation. Which meant Sarah was lying to her own attorney about the harassment reports, probably hoping to use them as leverage in settlement negotiations. But it also meant Sarah didn't know about Detective Williams' broader investigation yet. She thought she was still playing offense when she was actually walking into a trap. My laptop chimed with an email notification. TaskFlow's automated monitoring system had detected unusual traffic patterns. Someone was systematically testing the login system, trying different password combinations on the demo account I created for client presentations. The IP address traced back to a location 12 minutes from Sarah's apartment. I screenshotted everything and forwarded it to Detective Williams with a timestamp. Then I changed all of TaskFlow's access credentials and added 2-factor authentication to every account. Sarah had made her biggest mistake yet. She'd moved from character assassination to actual cybercrime, and she'd done it against a system that automatically logged every attempted intrusion with forensic-level detail. By tomorrow morning, I'd have enough evidence to add computer fraud charges to Detective Williams' growing case file. But first, I had to convince Rebecca Martinez that TaskFlow was worth fighting for, even if it meant going to war with someone who'd spent years perfecting the art of destroying people's lives. I opened my laptop and started preparing the most important presentation of my career. The meeting with Rebecca Martinez was scheduled for 9 a.m., but she called at 8:15 while I was reviewing my presentation notes for the 100th time. Jake, we need to move this up. Can you be here in 20 minutes? Something in her voice made my stomach clench. Is everything okay? Just get here. We'll talk in person. The Innovate Solutions lobby felt different when I walked in. Hushed conversation stopped as I passed, and the receptionist avoided eye contact. Marcus met me at the elevator with the expression of someone delivering bad news. Jake, Morrison Industries wasn't the only one. 3 more potential clients called since yesterday afternoon. All asking about TaskFlow's stability and developer reliability. He hit the button for the 15th floor. Rebecca's been fielding calls since 7 a.m. The conference room was packed when we arrived. Rebecca, the CTO I presented to 2 weeks ago, plus 4 people I didn't recognize, including a woman in an expensive suit who looked like she belonged in a corporate boardroom, not a startup meeting. Jake, this is Amanda Ross from our legal department, Rebecca said without preamble. We need to discuss some developments regarding your situation. Amanda Ross looked like she'd been practicing law since before I was born, with steel gray hair and the kind of calm competence that probably cost $500 an hour. She opened a leather portfolio and pulled out a stack of documents. Mr. Morrison, we've received some concerning communications over the past 24 hours. First, someone claiming to represent concerned industry professionals sent us a detailed dossier about your allegedly erratic behavior, substance abuse issues, and history of making threats against former colleagues. My hands clenched into fists under the table. Every word of that is fabricated. Second, Amanda continued, we received what appears to be a cease and desist letter claiming that TaskFlow incorporates proprietary code stolen from your previous employer, Meridian Technologies. The letter demands we stop using the software immediately or face legal action. The room started spinning. That's impossible. I built TaskFlow from scratch, and I can prove it. Every line of code has git commits with timestamps showing when it was written. Third, Amanda's voice got harder. Someone accessed our client database yesterday evening and downloaded contact information for every company we've pitched TaskFlow to. The breach was traced to login credentials that appear to be associated with your development account. What? I pulled out my phone, fingers flying over the keyboard to access TaskFlow's security logs. That's impossible. I changed all the passwords yesterday and added two-factor authentication after detecting suspicious login attempts. Rebecca leaned forward. Jake, I want to believe you, but this is starting to feel like more drama than TaskFlow is worth. We're a 47-person company. We can't afford to get dragged into whatever war you're fighting with your ex-wife. Rebecca, give me 10 minutes to pull the security logs. My voice was steadier than I felt. I can prove I didn't access your database, and I can show you exactly who did. For the next 8 minutes, I walked the room through TaskFlow's security monitoring system, my screen mirrored on the conference room's display. Login timestamps, IP addresses, failed authentication attempts, and most importantly, the geographic location data showing that yesterday's database access came from an IP address registered 12 minutes from Sarah's apartment, the same location that had been probing TaskFlow's demo account for 3 days. Amanda, someone is systematically impersonating me to sabotage TaskFlow, and they're doing it from the same location where they've been attempting unauthorized access to my systems. I pulled up Detective Williams' case file on my phone. This is part of a criminal investigation into fraudulent harassment claims, and now we can add computer fraud and identity theft to the charges. Amanda Ross studied my screen for 30 seconds that felt like hours. Mr. Morrison, if what you're showing us is accurate, someone has committed several felonies while using your identity. Are you willing to testify to that under oath? Absolutely. Rebecca exchanged glances with Amanda, then looked at Marcus. Marcus, what's your assessment of Jake's work over the past month? Separate from all this personal drama. Best developer I've worked with in 5 years. 18-hour days, never missed a deadline, code quality is exceptional. TaskFlow is legitimately revolutionary, we're already seeing 40% productivity improvements in our pilot projects. Marcus met Rebecca's eyes. Rebecca, if Jake can prove he's being systematically sabotaged, TaskFlow could be worth 10 times what we paid for it. Amanda closed her portfolio. Mr. Morrison, here's what's going to happen. You're going to provide us with complete documentation of everything you just showed us, plus contact information for this Detective Williams. We're going to have our cybersecurity team verify your logs independently. And if your story checks out, Innovate Solutions is prepared to not only continue our licensing agreement, but defend it aggressively. And if someone wants to play games with our business relationships, Rebecca added, they're about to discover that we have lawyers too. Walking out of that conference room, I realized something had fundamentally shifted. For months, I'd been playing defense against Sarah's attacks, trying to survive while she methodically destroyed everything I touched. But now I had allies with resources, evidence of actual crimes, and a product worth millions that she couldn't touch. Sarah had spent so much energy trying to destroy the person I used to be that she completely missed the person I was becoming. That was going to be a very expensive mistake. My phone rang at 6:17 a.m. on Friday morning, jolting me awake from the first decent night's sleep I'd had in weeks. Detective Williams' number flashed on the screen. Jake, we need to talk immediately. Can you meet me at the station in an hour? I was already reaching for my clothes. What happened? Your ex-wife escalated things overnight. Bring your laptop and any documentation you have about TaskFlow. This is bigger than we thought. The drive to the precinct felt like slow motion, my mind racing through possibilities. Sarah had been quiet for 3 days since Amanda Ross and Innovate Solutions' legal team had started making calls, warning her contacts about potential liability for spreading false information. I'd actually started to hope she might back down. I should have known better. Detective Williams was waiting with 2 other people I didn't recognize, a man in a federal agent's cheap suit and a woman with the kind of sharp-eyed intensity that screamed prosecutor. Jake Morrison, this is Agent David Kim from the FBI's Economic Crimes Unit and Assistant District Attorney Lisa Chen. We need to discuss some developments in your case. Agent Kim leaned forward across the conference table. Mr. Morrison, your ex-wife has been busy. Yesterday evening, she filed complaints with the Georgia State Bar claiming that Innovate Solutions attorneys made threatening phone calls to intimidate witnesses in your divorce proceedings. My stomach dropped. That's completely false. Amanda Ross called people to verify whether Sarah had contacted them about me, nothing more. We know, ADA Chen said crisply. But she also filed a complaint with the FBI claiming that you've been using TaskFlow to conduct corporate espionage, stealing client data from multiple companies and selling it to competitors. What? The word came out as a croak. I built TaskFlow from scratch. I can prove every line of code, every commit timestamp. That's not the concerning part, Agent Kim interrupted. The concerning part is that someone has been accessing corporate databases using credentials that trace back to TaskFlow's server infrastructure. Real breaches, real stolen data, real companies losing actual money. The room started spinning. Someone's framing me. Using TaskFlow's servers as a cover for. We figured that out pretty quickly, Detective Williams said. The technical forensics team ran the logs you provided us. Every data breach happened from that same IP address near your ex-wife's apartment. The same location that's been trying to hack into TaskFlow for 2 weeks. ADH and opened a thick folder. Mr. Morrison, Sarah Morrison has been running what amounts to a criminal enterprise. Identity theft, computer fraud, filing false police reports, witness intimidation, and now corporate espionage using your software as cover. We're looking at potential federal charges that could put her away for 20 years. But here's where it gets interesting, Agent Kim added. She made one critical mistake yesterday. When she filed the FBI complaint claiming you were conducting corporate espionage, she included detailed information about the breaches that was never made public. Information only the actual hacker would know. I stared at them. She incriminated herself in her own false accusation. Exactly. She was so focused on making you look guilty that she revealed she was the one conducting the actual crimes. Detective Williams smiled grimly. We've been monitoring her communications since Tuesday. Last night, she contacted someone she calls her technical consultant about finishing the task flow problem permanently. Agent Kim pulled out his phone and hit play on an audio recording. Sarah's voice, crystal clear through the speaker. I don't care what it costs, Marcus. Jake's app is worth millions and he's starting to figure out what I've been doing. I need you to make it look like he's been selling corporate secrets through TaskFlow, something big enough that no one will ever trust him again. The voice on the other end was unfamiliar but nervous. Sarah, this is getting way too risky. The FBI complaint was already pushing it, but if you want me to actually plant evidence on his servers, just do it. I've destroyed bigger threats than Jake Morrison. The recording ended in silence. ADH and closed her folder. Mr. Morrison, we're executing search warrants this morning. Sarah Morrison's apartment, her office, and the residence of Marcus Webb, different Marcus than your friend, this one's a former IT contractor with a history of corporate data theft. Agent Kim stood up. Jake, we're also going to need TaskFlow's server secured as evidence, but our tech team says they can image everything without disrupting your operations. Your business relationship with Innovate Solutions should be fine. I sat there staring at the conference table, trying to process that my ex-wife hadn't just been sabotaging my career, she'd been running an actual criminal operation using my software as cover, planning to destroy TaskFlow so thoroughly that I'd never recover. But she'd gotten so confident in her ability to manipulate the system that she confessed to federal crimes while trying to frame me for them. What happens now? I asked. Detective Williams grinned. Now Sarah Morrison learns what happens when you mess with someone who documents everything. The arrest happened while I was in a video conference with a potential client in Seattle. I was mid-presentation, walking through TaskFlow's analytics dashboard, when my phone started buzzing with calls from numbers I didn't recognize. I ignored them, focusing on explaining how our adaptive notification system could reduce their team's email overhead by 73%, when Marcus burst into the Innovate Solutions conference room. Jake, you need to see this. He held up his phone, showing a local news website. The headline made my blood freeze, local marketing executive arrested in multi-state corporate espionage ring. Sarah's professional headshot stared back at me from the screen, the same photo she'd used on her LinkedIn profile for 3 years. The client on the video call was still talking, asking technical questions I couldn't process while reading the article over Marcus's shoulder. FBI agents executed simultaneous search warrants at 3 Atlanta locations this morning, arresting Sarah Elizabeth Morrison, 32, and Marcus Webb, 29, on federal charges including computer fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit corporate espionage. I managed to finish the client call somehow, promising to send follow-up materials while my hands shook on the keyboard. The Seattle company wanted to move forward with a $75,000 implementation contract. 6 months ago, that would have been life-changing money. Now it felt surreal against the backdrop of my ex-wife being led away in handcuffs. My phone finally stopped buzzing long enough for me to check the missed calls. Detective Williams had called 4 times, Agent Kim twice, and my brother Mike once. But the message that made my stomach drop was from my divorce attorney, David Rodriguez. Jake, call me immediately. Sarah's arrest just complicated our settlement negotiations in ways I need to explain. I called David from an empty office down the hall from the conference room, not wanting Marcus and his team to overhear whatever legal nightmare was about to unfold. David, please tell me this actually helps our case instead of making it worse. It's complicated, Jake. On one hand, Sarah's credibility is completely destroyed. Any claims she made about your professional conduct or stability are now obviously fabricated, and the court will see her pattern of manipulation clearly. David paused. On the other hand, she's been arrested for crimes that generated significant financial damages. If the victims sue her civilly, they'll go after any assets she has access to. What does that mean for the divorce settlement? It means Sarah's attorney called me an hour ago wanting to finalize everything immediately, before the federal charges become public knowledge. They're offering to waive all alimony claims if we can close the case by next Friday. I almost dropped the phone. She wants to waive alimony. Everything. Everything. No ongoing payments, clean split of marital assets, she keeps her 401k and you keep yours. She's terrified that if this drags out, the court will factor her criminal charges into the settlement, or worse, her victims will be able to claim portions of any alimony she receives. I stared out the window at downtown Atlanta, processing the fact that Sarah's attempt to destroy my life had backfired so spectacularly that she was now desperate to escape our marriage with whatever she could salvage. David, what about the house? She wants you to buy out her half at current market value. $127,000 based on last month's appraisal. Jake, this is actually an incredible deal for you, especially considering TaskFlow's potential value. The house Sarah and I had bought together 3 years ago, the one I'd been dreading to lose in the settlement, the place where I'd coded TaskFlow's first prototype on our dining room table, I could actually keep it. There's one more thing, David continued. The federal prosecutor's office called me this morning. They want you to testify about Sarah's harassment campaign and how it affected your employment and business relationships. Your documentation is apparently crucial to proving the scope of her criminal operation. After hanging up with David, I sat alone in that empty office for 20 minutes, trying to reconcile the person I'd been 6 months ago, broke, unemployed, convinced my life was over, with the person I was becoming. TaskFlow was generating real revenue, I had clients in 3 states, and the woman who tried to destroy me was facing 20 years in federal prison for crimes she committed while trying to frame me. My phone buzzed with a text from Detective Williams. Jake, Sarah's asking to speak with you. Claims she has information about other victims and wants to negotiate. Are you interested? I stared at the message for a long time before typing back, no. She's caused enough damage. Let the lawyers handle it. But even as I sent the message, I couldn't shake the feeling that Sarah had one more card to play. People like her didn't go down quietly, and she'd spent too many years perfecting the art of manipulation to give up now. TaskFlow's server monitoring system chimed with an alert on my laptop. Someone was attempting to access our backup systems from a new location, not Sarah's apartment this time, but somewhere I didn't recognize. The war wasn't over yet. The attempted breach on TaskFlow's servers came from inside the federal detention facility where Sarah was being held. Agent Kim called me at 11:47 p.m., 3 days after Sarah's arrest, his voice tight with the kind of controlled frustration that meant someone had just made his job much harder. "Jake, we have a problem. Your ex-wife managed to convince another inmate to let her use their tablet during recreation time. She accessed TaskFlow's admin panel using credentials we thought we'd secured." I was instantly awake, laptop already opening before I'd fully processed what he'd said. "That's impossible. I changed every password and enabled two-factor authentication on all accounts." She had help. We traced the login to Elena Vasquez, her cellmate. Vasquez is in for wire fraud, specifically social engineering attacks on tech companies. Agent Kim's tone got grimmer. "Jake, Sarah didn't just stumble into corporate espionage. She's been building a network of people with complementary criminal skills. TaskFlow's security dashboard confirmed my worst fears. The breach had lasted 17 minutes, long enough to access client contact information, download development roadmaps, and copy the source code for our latest analytics features. But worse than what Sarah had stolen was what she planted. Agent Kim, she didn't just steal data. She uploaded something to our servers." I was scrolling through file logs, my stomach sinking with each discovery. Looks like fabricated email chains between me and TaskFlow's clients, discussing selling their proprietary information to competitors. How convincing are they? I opened one of the planted files, a fake email thread between me and Morrison Industries CTO discussing a $50,000 payment for their internal project data. The writing style was perfect, the technical details accurate, the timestamps carefully crafted to look authentic. Agent Kim, if I didn't know these were fake, I'd believe them myself. She's been studying my communication patterns for months, maybe years. These emails look like something I actually would have written. The implications hit me like ice water. Sarah wasn't just trying to frame me anymore, she was creating evidence convincing enough to destroy TaskFlow's credibility permanently. Even if the FBI cleared me of criminal charges, no company would risk working with a developer whose servers contain detailed records of selling client secrets. "There's more," Agent Kim continued. "Vasquez posted bail 2 hours ago. $75,000 cash, paid by someone calling themselves Sarah's business associate. We're trying to trace the payment source, but it was routed through 3 different shell companies." My phone started buzzing with an incoming call. Marcus from Innovate Solutions. "Agent Kim, I need to take this call. It's probably about the breach." Marcus sounded like he'd been awake for days. "Jake, we have a massive problem. 3 clients called this morning asking about irregularities in TaskFlow's data handling. Someone sent them screenshots of emails where you're allegedly offering to sell their internal information. Marcus, those emails are fabricated. Sarah planted them during a breach last night. I know they're fake, but Morrison Industries doesn't. They're threatening to sue us for $2 million in damages and demanding we immediately cease all TaskFlow operations." Marcus's voice cracked. "Jake, Rebecca's calling an emergency board meeting tomorrow morning. The licensing deal might be off the table." After hanging up, I sat staring at TaskFlow's code on my laptop screen, 6 months of 18-hour days and revolutionary development work that might be destroyed by fake emails Sarah had crafted from a jail cell. But then I noticed something in the fabricated files that made me smile for the first time in days. Sarah had made one critical mistake in her forged emails. The technical specifications she'd included for Morrison Industries' project contained details that had never been shared with TaskFlow, details that only someone with unauthorized access to their internal systems would know. She'd accidentally proven she was the real corporate spy while trying to frame me as one. I called Agent Kim back immediately. "I know how to prove the emails are fabricated, and it's going to make Sarah's federal case much worse." The hunter was about to become the hunted, permanently this time. The emergency board meeting at Innovate Solutions was scheduled for 9 a.m., but Rebecca called me at 6:30 with news that made my coffee taste like ash. "Jake, we need to talk before the meeting. Morrison Industries isn't our only problem anymore." I was already dressed, had been awake since 4 a.m. analyzing the fabricated emails Sarah had planted, building my case to prove they were forgeries. What happened? 3 more clients received anonymous packages overnight. Physical mailings with printed copies of those fake emails, plus what looks like financial records showing payments from competitors into accounts allegedly linked to you. Rebecca's voice was strained. "Jake, someone spent serious money making this look legitimate. Professional printing, overnight delivery, even fake bank statements." The scope of Sarah's operation was becoming clearer. This wasn't just revenge anymore, it was a coordinated attack designed to destroy TaskFlow so completely that I'd never recover professionally. "Rebecca, I have proof those emails are fabricated." Sarah included technical details about Morrison Industries' internal systems that were never shared with us. She accidentally revealed she had unauthorized access to their servers. "That's what we're counting on." "But Jake, the board is spooked. We're talking about potentially millions in liability if clients think we've compromised their data." She paused. "Amanda Ross thinks we might need to suspend the licensing agreement until this gets resolved." The meeting room was packed when I arrived, Rebecca, Amanda Ross, 3 board members I'd never met, plus Marcus looking like he hadn't slept. The atmosphere felt like a funeral. Amanda opened a folder thick enough to stop a bullet. "Jake, overnight developments have significantly complicated our situation. The physical mailings your ex-wife sent included bank routing numbers that appear to match accounts associated with your social security number." My stomach dropped. "She opened accounts in my name." "Appears so. We're having our forensic accounting team verify everything, but if Sarah managed to create a convincing paper trail showing payments for stolen data." Amanda didn't finish the sentence. Board member Patricia Sullivan, who I'd met exactly once during my initial presentation, leaned forward with the expression of someone about to deliver bad news. "Mr. Morrison, Innovate Solutions has built our reputation on absolute client confidentiality. Even the appearance of data theft could destroy relationships we've spent years building." "I understand, but..." "Which is why," Patricia continued, "we're prepared to make you an offer. We'll buy TaskFlow outright for $500,000, assume all liability for the current situation, and provide you with a clean exit from this mess." $500,000. 6 months ago, it would have been more money than I'd dreamed of seeing in my lifetime. Now it felt like being robbed at gunpoint by people wearing business suits. Patricia, task flow is worth 10 times that amount. The Morrison Industries implementation alone generates $200,000 in annual revenue, and we have 12 more clients in the pipeline. Had 12 more clients, Marcus said quietly. For pulled out this morning. The anonymous mailing spooked them badly. I looked around the table at faces that had been friendly and supportive just days ago, now calculating whether I was worth the risk. Sarah's final gambit was working exactly as she'd planned. I need 24 hours, I said finally. Agent Kim thinks he can trace the financial records and prove they're fabricated. If I can demonstrate that Sarah created fake accounts to frame me, will you reconsider? Amanda exchanged glances with Rebecca. Jake, if you can definitively prove this is all fabricated, we'll honor our original licensing agreement and support you through the legal process. But if there's any doubt about task flow's security or your involvement in data theft, then you take the buyout offer and disappear, Patricia finished. Walking out of that conference room, I realized Sarah had backed me into the same corner she'd created 6 months ago when she got me fired. Accept defeat and salvage what I could, or bet everything on proving my innocence against overwhelming fabricated evidence. The difference was that this time, I had Agent Kim, Detective Williams, and 6 months of documentation showing exactly how Sarah operated. She'd underestimated me before. She was about to do it again. The call from Agent Kim came at 2:47 p.m., exactly 6 months to the minute after I'd received that first HR email that destroyed my old life. Jake, we got her. All of her. I was in my car outside the federal building, having just finished 3 hours of testimony about Sarah's systematic harassment campaign. My voice was hoarse from walking prosecutors through every fabricated email, every fake police report, every piece of evidence that showed the scope of her criminal operation. The financial records. Completely fabricated. Elena Vasquez rolled over this morning and gave us everything. Sarah paid her $25,000 to help create fake bank accounts, forge financial statements, and coordinate the anonymous mailings to your clients. Agent Kim's voice carried the satisfaction of someone who just closed a complex case. But here's the beautiful part, Jake. Remember those technical details in the fake emails that only Morrison Industries would know? My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Yeah. Sarah stole that information during a separate breach of Morrison's servers 6 months ago. She's been running corporate espionage operations since before you two even separated, using the divorce as cover to expand her criminal network. Agent Kim chuckled. She didn't just incriminate herself trying to frame you, she confessed to crimes we didn't even know about yet. The federal courthouse doors opened and Sarah emerged flanked by 2 attorneys, her orange jumpsuit replaced by the kind of expensive suit she used to wear to destroy people's lives. But something was different. The confident posture was gone, replaced by the hunched shoulders of someone who'd finally been outmaneuvered. She saw me sitting in my car and our eyes met through the windshield. For just a moment, I saw something I'd never seen in Sarah's face before, the recognition that she'd lost completely. Agent Kim, what's her sentence looking like? 15 to 20 years federal time. Wire fraud, identity theft, computer crimes, conspiracy. The prosecutor's office is calling it one of the most sophisticated individual criminal operations they've seen. He paused. Jake, she tried to destroy you and accidentally built the evidence for her own life sentence. My phone buzzed with a call from Rebecca Martinez. I'd been expecting this call since leaving the federal building. Jake, Amanda just got off the phone with the prosecutor's office. Morrison Industries is dropping their lawsuit and wants to expand their task flow implementation to their West Coast operations. $800,000 contract, 3-year term. I watched Sarah climb into her attorney's Mercedes, probably heading back to jail to await sentencing. 6 months ago, she'd been convinced she was watching my life implode. Now I was watching hers disappear permanently while mine reached heights I'd never imagined. Rebecca, there's something else. I want to restructure our licensing deal. What did you have in mind? I thought about the folder of notes I'd hidden under magazines, the idea that had seemed too risky when I had a stable job and a toxic marriage. About the 18-hour coding sessions fueled by rage that had become something extraordinary. About Detective Williams telling me that documentation works both ways. I want to take TaskFlow fully independent. Buy back the licensing rights for $200,000 and hire Innovate Solutions as our first major partner instead of our parent company. Rebecca was quiet for 30 seconds. Jake, that's a hell of a risk. You'd be betting everything on TaskFlow's long-term success. Through my windshield, I could see the federal building where I just testified about 6 months of systematic sabotage that had accidentally freed me from everything that was holding me back. My old job that was crushing my soul. My marriage to someone who'd been running criminal operations behind my back for years. The fear of taking risks that had kept me from building something revolutionary. Rebecca, the best career move I ever made was getting fired by someone who underestimated what I was capable of building. Sarah's Mercedes disappeared around the corner, carrying her toward a future measured in decades of federal prison time. I started my car and drove home to keep building the life she'd accidentally given me.